Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We all needed to have a little powwow together here. And you know, I will say that it's pretty awesome that we have a team of staff and council that seek to work well together. So I appreciate that. I'd like to begin this meeting with a territorial acknowledgement. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, land on which we're broadcasting from, is the land traditionally cared for by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinootan people. We also acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Council, at the beginning of this council meeting, we pause to think about the needs of our community. May we show wisdom and compassion in all our decisions. Just looking to see if there's any declaration of community interest in the general nature thereof with the open session. Seeing none. Approval of minutes. There's 2 meetings, the 6th and the 13th here, moved by Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Bodley. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. For the consent motion, I just wanted to remind people on the revised agenda that items A and B have been removed from the agenda. So on the consent motion, is there anything that anyone wants pulled from consent? Okay, so seeing none, do I have a mover for the items? Councillor Wright, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. So we are on to staff reports. So the first one is item A, 9A, the EB Farm Playground Extension. And so we have a presentation on this.
I tried to practice yesterday to raise my volume. I'm often told that I speak in a low voice, so if I happen to lower my voice, please let me know. I'll raise it up again. So today I'll be talking about the EB Farm Playground expansion. I'll try to be brief and talk about the project high level, and I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have at the end. This is the location plan that shows the boundary of the EB Farm Playground expansion. And as you may see, it extends from the new playground that opened in 2023 to the area where the existing junior playground is located right now, reaching to the bird and peacock pen. And it also includes the small area right in front of the new playground over there. The intent of the playground expansion is to provide more variety of amenities while continuing to design for diverse user needs and wants. The design provides additional play opportunities, accessible gathering areas, integrated seating, and rest areas, and more opportunities for sensory stimulation while getting close to nature. All in all, the playground expansion will create a vibrant, inclusive, and accessible space that brings members of the community together while providing a place for people of all ages to enjoy time in Waterloo Park. For the ease of explanation, I divided the site plan into 3 areas or zones: the playground, the sand play area, the orchard and picnic area. The playground is designed with a focus on accessibility and additional play opportunities, with creative and imaginative play for children with different ages and abilities. Walking through the plan from the new playground that opened in 2023 to the proposed playground, you will find an accessible ramp and a slide and a sensory panel on top. At number 3, there's a horse spring rider. Numbers 4 and 6, they provoke imaginative and creative play with the farm market theme, with a truck and a trailer, flower and produce stands. Number 5 is a sensory tunnel, which is wheelchair accessible as well. And number 7 is a non-formal gathering space with tables and chairs where parents and kids can sit, eat, read, color, play, chat, whatever they find appropriate. The sand play area will include a sand pit with 2 transfer stations, an elevated sand table, which is with a built-in shade, seating and benches and umbrella tables. And as you may see, it also allows for wheelchairs and strollers to be seated or located within the bench and seating area and at the umbrella tables. And it is all in all designed with an accessible pathway around. The orchard and picnic area will replace the bird and peacock pen. And as you may see in the plan, an accessible pathway will connect the upper pathway of the Young Street lot to the lower pathway leading to the playground and the EB Farm play area. The plan shows the picnic areas and the picnic tables, and they allow for up to 3 wheelchairs and or strollers to be located at each table. And the pathway by itself is designed to be wide enough to accommodate comfortably for 2 wheelchairs to pass at the same time. Right in the small pathway between the new playground that opened in 2023 and the proposed playground expansion, the blue mark here is the proposed location of the communication tool, which is a nonverbal communication tool for children with speech problems. And the panel on the right that you see was the panel that was first selected from the manufacturer. However, after meeting with GRAC members, it was decided that this tool should be customized for the playground in particular. It will include verbs, terms, adjectives, phrases that the kids will be using in particular in this playground. The design of this piece is ongoing with the collaboration between the consultant, city staff, and Kidsability. It is to mention as well that Snowlark Landscape Architecture, as the project consultant, was able to engage a group of summer students from the University of Waterloo with particular interest of experience in the speech-language pathology field to address this piece. We are also seeking the professional expertise and knowledge of Kidsability to come up with a customizable communication tool that we hope will be helpful for children with communication and speech problems and will be a good addition to the playground expansion. I can talk about the project forever, but I'll stop here and allow Amy Ross to speak of her and GRAC's experience in this project.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to highlight just a little bit of feedback from GRAC, and Paula is here as a delegate to follow up on this as well. But I think a lot of the time when we think about the built environment, we think about buildings, right? Like our facilities, and this is equally a space in the built environment that needs some consideration for folks. We certainly have heard from people that accessible play spaces offer opportunities for people with and without disabilities. And they're equally important for children, but also parents who are disabled that maybe are there with their child, or caregivers, or older members of the community who might be there with their grandchildren, or folks that are interacting in meaningful ways with people in the play spaces. So those pieces have been considered in the development of this design. We challenged parks to maybe think about how GRAC could be involved at the very beginning of the design. And we've really taken to heart some of the feedback about feedback loops. And so there's been a really great process that we've done as a pilot this time around, where after the preliminary design was reviewed, there were some changes that were made, and then it came back to members of GRAC before going for tender. And so that is what you have, what has been shared with you today. And I'll just highlight that there is a desire for a swing, an accessible swing, where mobility devices can go on it, but there is not space to do that in this expansion. So that is something that we're highlighting as a need that isn't really anywhere in the community. There's not really parks in Waterloo region that have that available, and certainly not without traveling a great distance too. I think there might be one in Elmira, and that's not reasonable for people to have to go to if they want to have an outing necessarily. So I'll leave it at that and turn it over for any questions.
Thank you very much. So I think what we'll do is just see if there's questions for staff, but do remember that we have a delegation, Council. So is there any questions for staff? That was a really great presentation. It covered a lot of information. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to welcome Paula Saunders from GRAC, the chair of the Built Environment Subcommittee for GRAC. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. I just want to say how pleased GRAC is to be involved in these projects and how important it is to our committee, to the community, and those of us who want to use the parks. After phase 1 in 2023, when the accessible surface was put in, we realized that there was some accessibility challenges with how things were installed and use, etc. So very pleased that with this second phase, GRAC was called in the concept stage, where we sat with staff and we discussed their ideas and thoughts and gave our input, and we were listened to, and we found those reflected in the design that was presented today. And they came back to us at the 90% stage, so very pleased to see that a lot of our thoughts and wishes were included. This will now be coming forward to GRAC as a project at our monthly meeting to present it to the staff. GRAC struggles, as Amy said before, with doing things to make them accessible. Nothing can ever be totally accessible. It's just not possible. But we really want to strive to make it as accessible as we can for as many people. As Amy mentioned, it's important to me as a mom with a disability, now a grandma with disability, that I want to be able to go to the park with my kids as well. So for siblings with disabilities or without, the parents, the grandparents, the caregivers, we want to strive that there's something there for everyone that they can do. In saying that we can't make it totally accessible doesn't mean that we should stop trying. We need to keep looking at what's out there, what the new products are, what we can bring forward and put into these great things that we're doing. So on behalf of GRAC, we want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to be part of this, and we look forward to everything getting built, open, so we can all go play in the park. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for the delegation? Councillor Hanmer. Okay.
Thank you, Paula, for coming. I just want to give you a shout out. You've been our chair of the Built Environment Subcommittee for as long as I can remember, and even before I became involved with GRAC. I have the privilege of working with Paula and with Amy and the rest of GRAC as council's liaison, and I can tell you Paula is tireless in her effort to help us make things accessible in the city. And it is so much fun to see the joy coming as we make parks and play areas, play spaces accessible, and it's really through your leadership that we've been able to make some of those changes. So thank you, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Councillor Hamner.
Mayor McCabe.
Thank you, and echo Councillor Hanmer's comments. Thank you very much for your ongoing advocacy for community groups and organizations like the city and for individuals. So thank you for that. I was just curious about the accessible swing, because that was a preference that was indicated. Is it sort of, and I was curious, like, I know you said, the report said that there wasn't room there, but like if there was something removed, like would your preference be for something to be removed so an accessible swing could fit? Or you're fine with the, well, fine, I mean, you're comfortable with the design as it is, or I'm just kind of wondering if the swing really is a higher priority, and if there's a possibility of still trying to put that in and maybe take something else out if the room doesn't allow for it all to be there.
The struggle is that higher priority for whom? There's a lot of requests for it, but I think that what we've got in the design that we have now, there's a variety of things. And I don't really know the space needed, but it would take out a lot of the other equipment. Because, you know, it's a large device in itself that needs to be surrounded by a safe landing spot kind of thing. So I think that our request or thought for swing is keep it in mind in the near future, you know, and maybe we can build the next playground around a swing or whatever. But I think right now at this stage to remove it would be an issue.
Okay, that's fine. I just,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to suggest we redo the design or anything like that.
Yeah,
so
start
don't
all
worry,
over
Helen.
again and put a swing in the middle and then, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I just really was curious about really like how, like if there's a possibility or where that kind of priority really landed. But maybe it is something for staff to take away and think about. I mean, we have other parks across the city that are likely in need of some additions and upgrades. I'm sure I know the list is long, but maybe that's a piece that, as you said, Paula, in another area, the swing could be sort of the centerpiece and the rest of it could be built around. I don't know if you wanted to respond to, either of you wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, just as Paula said, it's not that you remove one play element for the swing. The swing really is big and it requires a big safety zone around it. So it will be taking almost all the space if we want in that area, if we want to put the swing. I know that we know that now that we know that we have this request for swing, it is in our list, and when I know that whenever there will be an opportunity with the space and the budget, we will be trying to add a swing. As a team in the parks, we're always thinking about it. It's just we didn't yet find the right project for it.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's good to know. And
Yeah,
then
so give us the money, we'll find a spot, you know.
well done, Paula. That's why you're so good at being a community advocate for so many years. My other question was just about the washroom, because it was noted that and sorry, that might be a staff question versus Paula, but like. I guess I was trying to think of like how sort of accessible is it, like, because I haven't been over to that part. Like, does it need a major upgrade, or is it like it needs an adult table in there, or like is it accessible from, you know, like you could get in your wheelchair? I'm just
So you're
kind of
talking the one up on the hill?
Yes, yeah.
Which is hard to get to.
I'm just wondering
is
what we
hard.
need to think about in terms of like the accessibility of what exists there.
The one on the hill needs to be demolished.
Oh, it's okay.
We're thinking about this. This is something, it kind of goes hand in hand, but it's not part of this project. And we are looking at grant opportunities for that and have considered what reasonable design might look like and where it could fit near the playground.
Near the pardon?
Near the playground.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just thought I'd ask the question. I mean, it was referenced in the report, and, you know, obviously that's an important part of any sort of community park as well, so.
I think most of the washrooms in park spaces probably need the same consideration.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm over this next piece too. So thank you, Hella.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. And so there are motions here, Council. There's a recommendation, 1 through 4. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Hanmer, seconded by Councillor Rowe. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So next up is the 2024 Asset Management Plan, and we have Cassandra Pacey with us, and she has a presentation to share. Welcome, Cassandra. Our favorite decision-making tool.
Thank you. It's the first time I've ever had to raise it this high. It's good. So Chair Freeman, members of council, corporate management, and the public and staff, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I'm here to share some 2024 asset management plan highlights, and the plan, which are tabled for approval this afternoon. Before getting started, I want to thank the asset management team, subject matter experts, and the asset management working group, as they are an integral part of the system and the process. I also want to thank the communications team, as they provided their expertise and support to make the 2024 asset management plan fully AODA compliant. So the items I will talk about today are why we create asset management plans, some examples of some of the improvements we've incorporated, our annual infrastructure funding gap, and sharing what council is being asked for today. So why do we create asset management plans? In many parts of Ontario, existing infrastructure is deteriorating faster than is being rehabilitated or replaced, putting services at risk. In response, the province of Ontario enacted the Asset Management Plan for Municipal Infrastructure Regulation in 2018, and the intent was to help municipalities plan for their infrastructure assets. So asset management plans help council and staff prioritize the right type of repair or replacement at the right time. And through our asset management documents, we staff are able to share with council and the public what our average annual infrastructure funding gap is. So some of the improvements that we've done, and there are many of them that I want to highlight because our journey has been evolving and improving over time, are the future considerations or demand management that staff are monitoring. So the things that we're keeping on our radar for the future. The addition of modern equivalent improvements when data is available. With the assistance of the Strategic Initiatives team, we are working to identify climate change adaptation and mitigation efforts. And then the final example I want to highlight is the inclusion of the Uptown BIA and Waterloo Public Library assets. Due to the time required to write a document of this nature, the 2024 Asset Management Plan has been developed using 2023 data. The 2023 average annual infrastructure funding gap is $54.3 million, $37.6 million is for tax-based assets, and then the balance is for enterprise-funded assets. While we acknowledge that gap, it's really important to acknowledge that council has been making efforts, particularly since 2020, to address the infrastructure funding gap. Since 2020, council has implemented a plan to begin narrowing the infrastructure funding gap. And as of the 2024 to 2026 budget process in February, council has approved increases to the Capital Infrastructure Reinvestment Reserve Fund by $13.4 million annually for infrastructure. Please note that this 2024 asset management plan excludes infrastructure funding approved within the 2024 to 2026 budget process, nor does it reflect the financial impacts of reaching council's ambitious goal of taking the corporation to net zero impacts by 2050 for emissions. So what council is being asked today is on the screen before you, with the critical piece being the endorsement of the 2024 Asset Management Plan. If the report is approved, the city will meet Phase 1 through Phase 3 of OREG 588-17. Both the provincial and federal governments have established grant programs over the past few years to help fund rehabilitation and replacement of municipal infrastructure and address climate change. Despite these programs, for municipalities like Waterloo to achieve their powerful climate change goals and to maintain infrastructure assets, more funding from higher levels of government will be required. Ongoing advocacy efforts and proactive engagement with all levels of government are needed to identify funding potential opportunities and effectively communicate the city's needs. We are requesting council to direct staff to advocate for environmental sustainability, climate change, and sustainable infrastructure grant funding from higher levels of government. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for, that's a lot of information to put into a very short presentation. Thank you very much, Cassandra. And to your team as well. I know the amount of work that goes into building out this plan. Questions, Council? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Freeman. Again, Cassandra, really thank you for the continuous education on this asset management plan. I think it's really helpful for council to be able to look at all the ways in which we are informing and stewarding our infrastructure at the city. It's just a really fantastic tool, so thank you for that. In your report on the next steps section, which was of our council reports, page 119, I have no idea what it is on yours, but there's 6 different items there, the main categories of activity to focus on over the next few years. And on number 5, we talk about reviewing level of service metrics to better understand the implications and incorporate more metrics as appropriate. Is that where our climate change impacts and our adaptation strategies and their impact on our assets, is that sort of the section where that would come into play?
Through Chair Freeman to Councillor Wright, it kind of depends because it's going to depend on the metrics that we establish. Many of the metrics on the core assets, so roads, sanitary, stormwater, they're prescribed metrics that we are required to report on. All the non-core assets are ones that we have developed ourselves. There are a couple metrics throughout the facilities or any area that has facilities that has GHG, so that's an additional metric. So it's kind of a wait and see what we develop over time because we want it to be meaningful to staff and to the council and to the public. So we don't want to just make them up and then go, this doesn't mean anything.
So just following on that, part of the asset management system focuses on the quality of the data and how that is sort of iterative. It changes over time as the quality of the data improves. And I just want to acknowledge, too, how difficult it is for us to get the right kind of data about climate change impacts on the life cycle of different assets. So just acknowledging that, and for anybody who's listening, I guess, on YouTube, that sort of data is so emergent right now, and so I'm very keen to learn more about how you end up working with that. Thanks.
Other questions, Council? Did you have a question? Yeah, Mayor McCabe. Yeah.
Thank you, Cassandra. I appreciate the report. It's a very dense report, so thanks very much for that. And just, Chair Freeman, on your question about FCM and the conference that I and a couple of staff members recently attended, I just feel that it weaves really well into this asset management piece because FCM, and they're working with AMO, and their major call right now is for a new municipal growth framework, and I think that that was a big topic of discussion at the FCM conference because we know that the need for reimagining a framework to address municipalities' ongoing financial crunches is really, we're really at a critical point with this. And so there was a lot of discussion at the FCM meeting, and FCM launched a new policy paper just for council's knowledge called the New Municipal Growth Framework, and part of that includes a request to double the Canadian Community Building Fund, which is formerly the gas tax. So just wanted people to be aware of that, and they're also calling on the province and the federal government to match that funding, because that's really what we're looking for ultimately to, I think, address this ongoing infrastructure challenge that we have. So both Minister Fraser, Minister of Housing, and the Prime Minister were there, and there's a sense that we can look to the fall economic statement for hopefully some potential commitments on the municipal growth framework. So, so that hopefully is encouraging. But as to your report, one of my questions was around, I'm really cognizant of the heads and beds levy, and the fact that it hasn't changed since 1986 or 1987, and we are, and the heads and beds is a provincial calculation to compensate municipalities that have post-secondary institutions, correctional facilities, and hospitals. And that hasn't changed since 1987. And if it were increased, I'm just curious if you know how much that would actually help in terms of our operating budget and in terms of addressing our infrastructure deficit.
So through Chair Freeman to the mayor, it's a little tricky because it's going to depend on the budget of the day and what council chooses to do with it. And I don't know how much it would help because the budget committee would make the necessary recommendations to council, and depending on what council approved or didn't approve, but perhaps Brad Witzel has more to add to that topic.
Thanks, Cassandra. Thanks, Brad.
Through you, Chair Freeman, to the mayor. Thank you, Cassandra. I don't have the number in front of me. I do know we had noted in our budget documents, and when we looked at inflating the heads and bed rates for just even inflation from 1975 to current, it would be, you know, in the order of a few $1 million. So it could make a material impact on our budget, but we can certainly circulate that exact figure to council.
Thanks. I think that would be helpful, just so that we're aware of where we're being, I would say, shortchanged in terms of some funding through that levy. Because with 3 post-secondary institutions in our community, it's certainly something that really impacts us. Also, so my other question then is, I'm wondering if you could tell us about progress on green infrastructure and what we're doing as a municipality to expand and to maintain and adapt natural infrastructure in addition to the gray infrastructure.
Through you, Chair Freeman, to the mayor. So our green infrastructure would include our creeks, our stormwater management ponds, even though it's like they're slightly built, our parks, our urban forests, and we are consistently having conversations with subject matter experts on the information, the data available. So we are not perfect, but we are definitely striving to improve every day. So we have them included. Probably one of our larger gaps on the natural infrastructure is actually the inclusion of our urban forests. However, we are waiting for the urban forest master strategy. Hopefully I said that right name. To come forward with some recommendations so we can continue to improve and add those in and figure out what we should be reporting on those items. But we are continually making improvements, and we do reach out to our counterparts across the country to see what everybody else is doing as well, to see where we are. There, in a number of areas, we are ahead of the game because some municipalities don't include their creeks. They don't necessarily have their urban forests in their asset management plans either. For this province of Ontario, they have to have them in by July 1st, as we do. But across the country, they're kind of waiting to see where Ontario goes. So we'll see where we are, but we are definitely actively trying to improve our information on the natural assets.
Sorry, thank you. That's really helpful to know, particularly as the urban tree master plan comes into fruition. I don't know if I got that right. And just, you know, to follow up on Councillor Wright's question around, you know, the climate change and the ongoing challenges we're facing with that. I do have one more question, but I think other councillors may have questions, so I'll just pause.
Go ahead, finish your question.
Thanks. Just my last question then was just, because Waterloo is really, for years, has been on a path of intensification. And so, because we've reached our urban boundaries. So I'm just wondering how or if issues regarding our asset management are captured, particularly when we bring new, or when we consider new housing developments and when they're being planned. Because we know that, you know, we have an infrastructure deficit right now. We're continuing to look to build, or well, have our developers in the community to build more housing. Partly what I'm wondering is, you know, is as we intensify, and is it a more cost-effective strategy because we're using infrastructure that's already in place, and then we're adding more people to use that, but also it adds more pressure to the existing infrastructure. So I'm just wondering if you could give us a sense of how those new housing developments, how they impact existing assets and what we maybe need to think about in the future as those come online?
Through you, Chair Freeman, to the mayor. The short answer is yes, infill and building up does use our assets a little bit more effectively than if we go out, because we won't be adding kilometers of pipes or kilometers of roads. But the specifics, I'm going to actually defer to Commissioner Ormson in hopes that he can expand on that answer.
Through you, Chair Freeman, to the mayor. Thanks, Cassandra. Yeah, and as Cassandra alluded to, Mayor, with an intensified urban form, we're actually optimizing our assets. Developers are responsible for the costs of all the private side infrastructure. Greenfield is obviously different. We do detailed tracking and accounting of our new greenfield assets. But with respect to the core area developments and things like that, the city has done a lot of work over the past 20 years to make sure that the infrastructure can support what's now before us, including major generational investments with the region on things such as the ION LRT system. Developers are required to check to make sure that each new site plan development has the appropriate capacity in our system. Where that's not the case, we do allow special servicing agreements where the developers can actually go into the right-of-way at their expense and upgrade the necessary infrastructure to support the proposed development. And there's a lot of monitoring work that obviously takes place between city utilities and engineering. Water, wastewater tracking takes place to make sure that we can support what's proposed. But we're in good shape for intensification over the long run in Waterloo.
Thank you very much, Ron and Cassandra. I really appreciate the information.
Thanks. And Mayor, I can tell you that the answer to your question was the current rate at $75 per bed's been in place since '87. The city's portion of this is 34%. The rest goes to the region. If the rate had kept pace with inflation, the rate would be approximately $165 per bed, and the annual increase in revenue for the city about $1.8 million. So it's thank you, Carrie, for your field notes back from media, our budget media days. But yeah, no, it's a true piece, and I think for me that kind of led into what I hope it's okay. I can make a comment as finance chair. The importance of this asset management report in my mind's eye is it underpins the conversations that we're having with higher levels of government. And this is a great example of one of those conversations. I mean, we've raised this probably every other AMO. We've requested a meeting with various and sundry ministers to talk about these kinds of things. And as more and more municipalities across Canada build out some consolidated reporting on these aspects where it's a consistent message of, underfunding and what can we do differently, and that the use of the property tax is not a good funding source for some of these large infrastructure gaps, that there has to be more tools made available to municipalities. I think it'll strengthen those conversations more broadly. So, I really appreciate the fact, Cassandra, that you've committed your time to serve on the board of the asset managers, municipal asset managers, because that's a forum by which you have opportunity to have really focused conversations with infrastructure funding at the provincial and federal levels. And so I know that's great in terms of the fact that Waterloo's kind of always led the discussion on asset management, and then to have you in a role of leadership there, it's really valued. Was there other questions for Cassandra on this report or for other staff? So I know that this is a big effort, that a lot of staff members feed into the work that you're doing, and I also feel that the asset management plan is reflective of kind of the breaking down of individual groups. Everybody has to feed into this, so there's no pillars or withholding of information, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's just this great flow of information from one department to the next, and it covers everything from trees to sidewalks kind of thing. So thank you very much. So council, there's a recommendation in our package here. There is 5 items. Is there a mover for the recommendation? It's moved by Councillor Vasek and seconded by Mayor McCabe. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you very kindly. The next item is with regard to the parkland strategy implementation in St. Moritz Community Park. And Anna Lee Sangster is here to answer any questions that you might have. Council, is there questions? Is there one particular ward councillor who'd like to move this recommendation? Okay, for sure.
Thank you. Just a brief comment. I'm happy to move it through you, Chair Freeman. I know that folks in Ward 2 and in the West End, broadly speaking, are really excited about the potential for this park space. So I'm really excited to see that the engagement is going to be happening moving forward, and really looking forward to seeing what the final vision for a hub park on the west end of the city is going to look like. It'll be used by folks in Clare Hills, folks in Vista Hills, in Columbia Forest, Laurelwood, and Westvale, Beechwood, everywhere on the west side of the city. So just happy to move it forward.
And seconded by Councillor Hanmer.
With a comment, thank you, through you. Yes, I fully endorse this proposal. We had a long discussion, Councillor Bodley and I, about where would be the good place to put something in the West End, and this is a start. There are many other spots we need in the West End, but I'm very happy to see this coming right now. So I'm happy to second it.
That's great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? So that's carried unanimously, thank you. The next item is with regard to Beaver Creek Road and Conservation Drive. It's the award of sanitary pumping station design and contract administration and inspection services. Dan is here to answer any questions if council has it. Any questions? I think we've talked about this one actually quite a fair bit. It's one of our most talked about pumping stations, except for the one in my ward where it smelled, imagine. There are 3 recommendations. Council, is there a mover for that motion? Moved by Councillor Roach, seconded by Councillor Wright. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. And council, this takes us to our recess, and I wish you a good council meeting this evening. I'm going to leave you in the good hands of the mayor, because I'm still on Scotland time. And until I recover from that, it's best that I not lead a meeting. So we are now recessed until 6:30 this evening.